Right now, somewhere in your kitchen, there's a small brown pit sitting in your trash that could grow into a full-sized fruit tree in your backyard. Every summer, millions of peach pits, plum pits, cherry pits, apricot pits, and almond shells get thrown straight into the garbage. Most people never think twice about it. I didn't either, for years. And yet, with almost no cost and almost no equipment, that same pit can become a tree that produces fruit for decades. Here's what most people assume. They assume you need a special nursery-grade seed to start a fruit tree. You don't. They assume growing fruit trees from pits is too slow or too complicated for a home gardener. It isn't, once you know the 3 steps. And they assume the tree won't actually produce good fruit, so it's not worth the effort. That last one has some truth buried in it, and I'm going to explain exactly what to expect, so you go into this with realistic expectations instead of the wrong idea. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact 3 steps to take a pit from your kitchen counter to a young, thriving tree in your yard for peach, plum, cherry, apricot, and almond. The process is nearly identical for all 5. There are just a small handful of moments where one behaves differently from the others, and I'll flag those the instant they matter, so nothing catches you off guard. Welcome to Senior Green Haven. I'm so glad you found us. Around here, we believe the best gardens are built on truth, not trends. You won't find miracle shortcuts here, just practical advice backed by real growing experience, tested in real backyards, not just written up in an article somewhere. If that sounds like your kind of gardening channel, subscribe and join our growing community. Let's get into step 1. And it's the step almost everyone rushes through, which is exactly why so many homegrown pits never make it past week 2. Step 1. Peaches, plums, cherries, and apricots all belong to the same fruit family called drupes, or stone fruits. Almonds belong to this same family too, which surprises a lot of people the first time they hear it. What looks like a hard pit or shell in all 5 of these is actually a protective shell around the true seed inside, almost like a tiny wooden vault. Your job in this step is simple. Get that vault clean, dry, and undamaged, so whatever's inside has the best possible chance of waking up later. Start by eating the fruit and cleaning the pit completely. Any leftover fruit flesh left clinging to the surface will encourage mold once the pit is stored, so rinse it thoroughly and scrub off every trace of pulp with an old toothbrush if you have one lying around. This sounds like a small detail, but I've personally lost more pits to mold than to anything else on this list, simply because I rushed this part. Here's why it matters. A seed is essentially dormant, living tissue. Any moisture-trapping residue left on the shell becomes a food source for mold spores, and once mold sets in, it can kill the seed before cold storage even begins. Let the pit air dry for about a week in a cool, shaded spot, spaced out on a paper towel, so air reaches all sides. Don't skip this stage. A damp pit is far more likely to rot than to sprout. A healthy pit should feel solid and heavy for its size, with no soft spots, no dark discoloration, and no smell. If a pit feels unusually light or hollow, when you shake it gently near your ear, the seed inside may have already dried out or failed to develop, and it's not worth wasting 3 months of cold storage on it. Label your pits as you go, and I mean this seriously. It's incredibly easy to lose track of which pit is which once they're all sitting in a bag together, and a peach seedling and a plum seedling look almost identical for the first several months of growth. I once mixed up a whole batch and didn't figure out what I'd actually grown until the leaves matured a full season later. You now have a clean, dry, labeled pit. But right now it's fast asleep, and no amount of soil or sunlight is going to wake it up. There's exactly one thing that will, and it's the part of this process almost nobody outside of serious growers has ever heard of. Step 2. Cold stratification. This is the step that makes or breaks the entire process. Peach, plum, cherry, apricot, and almond seeds all evolved in climates with real winters. In nature, the pit falls to the ground in autumn, sits through months of cold, damp conditions, and only germinates once spring arrives and the danger of hard frost has passed. That cold period isn't just whether the seed happens to survive. It's a built-in signal, almost like an internal alarm clock, telling the seed that winter is over and it's finally safe to grow. Skip it. And most of these seeds simply stay asleep indefinitely, no matter how perfectly you plant them. To recreate this at home, place each pit in a damp paper towel or a small bag of slightly moist sand. Then seal it inside a labeled plastic bag or small container. Store it in your refrigerator, not the freezer, for roughly 8 to 12 weeks. Check on your pits every couple of weeks. The paper towel or sand should stay damp, never soaking wet. If it dries out, mist it lightly. If it feels waterlogged, let it air out slightly before resealing, since too much moisture invites mold just as easily as too little. This is the one point in the process where the 5 fruits genuinely part ways, so it's worth knowing up front. Peaches and apricots typically need close to the full 12 weeks. Plums tend to be ready a little sooner, often around the 10-week mark. Almonds usually fall in the 8 to 10-week range. And cherries, more than any other fruit on this list, are notoriously slow and inconsistent, sometimes taking the full 12 weeks and occasionally longer. If you only remember one exception from this whole video, let it be that cherries test your patience more than the rest. Around the appropriate week for your fruit, check for a small crack in the shell or a tiny root emerging from inside the bag. That's your clearest sign the pit has finished stratifying and is finally ready to grow. The most common mistake here is impatience. Pulling pits out too early, before the full cold period is complete, is one of the biggest reasons home growers assume they've failed, when really they simply hadn't waited long enough. Mark your calendar, note the start date, and commit to the full timeline before you go looking for a root. Once that first small root appears, something changes. You're no longer just maintaining a bag in your fridge. You're holding a tree that's actively deciding to grow, and from here, everything moves noticeably faster. Step 3. Once your pit shows a root or a visible crack, it's time to move it into soil. Plant it about 1 to 2 inches deep in a small pot filled with well-draining potting mix, with the root or cracked end facing downward. Keep the soil consistently moist, never waterlogged, and place the pot somewhere it gets bright. Indirect light rather than harsh, direct afternoon sun right away. Overly wet soil at this stage is one of the fastest ways to rot a seed that has just barely started growing. So err on the side of slightly dry over slightly soggy. Within 2 to 6 weeks, you should see a small green sprout emerge. Apricots and almonds tend to be the quickest and most reliable to show growth. Peaches follow close behind with a noticeably thick, sturdy stem. Plums take a little longer to gain momentum but catch up within the first couple of months. And true to form, cherries are usually the last to show visible growth above the soil, even after successfully germinating below it. If your cherry seems to be doing nothing while everything else is sprouting, that's normal, not a failure. Once your seedling has a few sets of true leaves and outdoor temperatures are consistently mild, begin hardening it off. This means gradually introducing it to outdoor conditions over 1 to 2 weeks, adding a few more hours outside each day, before transplanting it permanently into the ground or a larger container. Skipping this step and moving a seedling straight from a windowsill into full outdoor sun is one of the fastest ways to shock and lose it. Protect young seedlings for their first year or two. A mature tree can handle real winter cold, since that's exactly what its seed needed to germinate in the first place, but a young seedling hasn't built up that same hardiness yet. Mulch around the base and, in harsher climates, consider moving potted seedlings somewhere sheltered until they're more established. Here's the honest part I promised at the start. A tree grown from a store-bought fruits pit is a seedling, not a clone of the parent tree. Most fruit you buy comes from grafted trees, meaning the fruit variety you enjoyed was attached onto separate rootstock. The seed inside carries genetic variation from both parent trees involved in pollination, so your tree may produce fruit that tastes somewhat different from what you originally ate. Sometimes it's just as good, sometimes it's smaller, tartar, or later to ripen. That unpredictability is part of the adventure, and more than a few beloved backyard varieties have been discovered exactly this way by someone who simply decided to plant a pit and see what happened. Realistically, expect 3 to 5 years before your tree produces its first fruit. Cherries and almonds especially often need a second compatible tree nearby for proper pollination, so a single tree standing alone may flower beautifully every spring and still never set fruit. It's worth sitting with that timeline for a second. Somewhere down the road, you're going to walk past a tree in your own yard, reach up, and pick fruit from something that started as a pit you almost threw in the trash. That's the moment all 3 of these steps are actually building toward. If this is changing the way you look at your kitchen scraps, take a second to like this video. It genuinely helps more gardeners discover that a real fruit tree can start from something they almost threw away. And let me know in the comments, which one are you starting with first? Peach, plum, cherry, apricot, or almond? I'd love to hear what's already growing on your windowsill or what you're about to start this week. A few extra details that make a real difference between a pit that sprouts and one that doesn't. Start more pits than you think you need. Germination rates from homegrown pits are inconsistent, often somewhere between 30 and 70%, depending on the fruit and how fresh the pit was. Starting 5 or 6 of any given fruit gives you a far better realistic chance of success than starting just one and pinning all your hopes on it. Choose pits from the freshest fruit you can, ideally eaten within a few days of purchase. Fruit that sat in the refrigerator for weeks tends to produce noticeably less viable seeds. If you live somewhere with genuinely cold winters, you can skip the refrigerator entirely and simply plant pits directly in a pot left outdoors through fall, letting natural seasonal temperatures handle the stratification for you. Just protect the pot from squirrels, who find buried pits just as appealing as you do. Let's go back to where we started. You don't need a special seed to grow a fruit tree. The pit sitting in your kitchen right now works perfectly well. You don't need to be an experienced gardener either. Cleaning a pit, chilling it, and planting it are 3 steps anyone can follow, regardless of how long they've been gardening. And yes, the fruit might not be identical to what you started with, but that's not a reason to skip this. It's part of what makes growing from seed such a genuinely rewarding project. You don't need to start all 5 at once. Pick one fruit you love, save a few pits from it this week, and give this a try before your next trip to the store. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more practical gardening videos like this one. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today. I truly appreciate you being part of the Senior Green Haven community. Until next time, happy gardening.